And Nathan, can you talk about your experiences touring John Cleary? Because I think a lot of people here would be surprised at how, well, John's well known, but how artists who perhaps aren't as well known can tour Australia and play in Melbourne and pack out 800, 1,000 seat venues when they might only get 30 or 40 people to a club in New Orleans.
I think, I think for John Cleary particularly, and I'm sure there's other artists like it, Australia's probably his biggest market on the planet, and I think it's quite easy for anyone. Australians are just into a good story. I think when I look at acts to work with, it's how many records they're sold or how many hits they've got on YouTube is all kind of good, but you need that first paragraph of a press release that doesn't sell. We've done this, we've done this, we've done that. It's more like a personal story, and if you've got that, and you can sort of convey that in the press and sort of get people excited about it, then Australians are the kind of people who buy tickets for it. I mean, Cleary for me, when I started working with him, had already been touring. I think Peter did his first tour maybe 10 years before I started working with him. Is that right, Peter?
Yeah, back when he used to tour with Maria Muldaur.
Yeah. So, I mean, his story started 15 years ago in Australia, and he saw that at the time as a market which, if he developed, would be a very, very big one for him. And undoubtedly, down there, he's a lot bigger than he is in the US. So, I mean, big and small, it doesn't matter. And some smaller acts are actually easier because, as long as they've got a really good story and they've got music that sounds great and they've got a good clip on YouTube, then I can talk to Chugg, I can talk to Peter and convince them into putting these smaller acts on.
How would they book a tour? How would a tour be booked? Who would they go to if perhaps they may not get on a festival bill?
I mean, Australia can be a kind of tricky market. I would approach agents, definitely. I don't think it's, you could go and book it yourself, but ultimately you're going to need a sponsor to get down there for visas and stuff, which Millie can certainly fill you in on.
One of the things that we're starting to see more and more across cultural collaborations, and I think there's a real benefit, and certainly in my role as Sounds Australia, I'm looking for opportunities for Australian artists to get into different markets around the world. And I think what we're starting to see is artists themselves, through the use of the internet, through a whole lot of blogs, a whole lot of podcasts, a whole lot of really terrific sites that are out there, finding like-minded artists in another market and twinning. So by that I mean they're looking at actually doing it themselves, cutting through the infrastructure of an agent and a promoter and a sponsor, and you've got artist managers and bands really connecting directly. And if you guys are, got a fan base here, you're doing shows, within the state, within the city, and you're pulling numbers, that is of absolute interest to Australian artists. So if you're a hip-hop crew and you're looking for, access to Australia and you can find the right kind of artists that you could offer shows here, then they can offer shows there. I actually think there's nothing better. And from that, you can get a little bit of a buzz going, you can start to do your first show, and the likes of these three at all different levels then start to hear about it.
Michael?
Stop for a bit.
We're currently doing a tour in Australia with a brilliant young singer-songwriter from Los Angeles called Lissy. And she's touring with an Aussie girl called Megan Washington, who's had huge success at home. And they got together in LA, they recorded a track, they got photos taken, they did interviews together, and that tour is on at the moment and it's going fantastically. Lissy was basically unknown in Australia 2-3 months ago. And when she tours America shortly, Megan goes out with her. So it does happen. One of the great things about our country is we're very, very open to every genre of music. And since 2000, the potential concert-going population is about 1.5 million to 2 million people. So that the small genres of music that could only pull 10 people back in the 90s can now put 600 to 700 people into a venue. So it's a good time for rock and roll and blues and all the different genres of music in our country. It's an exciting time. I'm actually getting goosebumps down the back.
Hi, I'm Mary Flynn. If my band was lucky enough to be accepted to go to Australia, can you give me a ballpark number of what would be our costs to get over there? And where would we stay and all those gory little details?
How big's in the touring party?
Oh, let's say I brought 5.
5.
Yeah, I mean, we have to play the plane fare, etc.
It's about $1,000 return flights from Los Angeles to Sydney. You can get accommodation there from the lower level through to the top level for anywhere between $100 and $350. You can hire...
Per night?
Per night. You can hire minivans for about $70 a day. A lot of those costs, once you get there, are covered by the promoter. So really, it's, you know, most of the deals in Australia are delivered deals, which means you get yourself there and then everything else gets pretty much taken care of as far as accommodation and ground transport and getting around. And one of the things about Australia was different to America. America fits into Australia. The United States actually fits into our country. And the distance between cities on the east coast is 500 to 600 miles. But there's no cities in between as such. There are country towns that are starting to take tours, but it's quite a schlep to get around. And we don't have a lot of fucking big freeways either. It's like driving down the back roads through Alabama and Mississippi sometimes. So, but you can do it, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to get down there and do it.
So basically what I think I heard you say was that, I know you said promoters do some, and I kind of got lost in the middle.
I'm a bit
Yeah, I did. Kind of like we have to pay our own way down on the plane, and we've got to pay our hotel when we get there. Is that my understanding?
It depends what kind of arrangement you come to with your promoter.
Well, let's say you're an unknown and you're not, you're not Luther Kent or something coming down there.
Ballpark probably, 10 or 20 grand, depending on how big it is. But, I mean, your promoters, that's going to be offset by the gigs that you earn and the festivals that you play. And in some cases, if a promoter wants to develop you, they'll probably take a hit and spend some of that money. I mean, you probably, if it's your first time out there, you're definitely going to have to cover your flights, which from New Orleans is probably, I don't know, maybe $1,700 return.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, depending on your arrangement, you probably get a fee per show.
Each performer in the band needs to come up with at least,
whatever
$3
your
grand?
arrangement is. Sometimes it's just one person. So 20 grand on whole. But as I said, depending on what you earn on gigs, promoters will give you a fee per night. So, yeah.
And the promoters organise your visas and things like that,
So, I mean, first tour down there, if you can go down there and break even, that's probably...
Oh, yeah, that's good. I'm just trying to
goal.
figure out if we got accepted for anything, how much money do we have to come up with just to get over there? And that's kind of where I was at.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, probably just, return airfare, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just say something? I mean, to me, it's all about being ready.
Yeah.
It's all about timing. It's all about you're at that point where you haven't gone and done this too early. You know that your band is at that point where you're going to be able to go. You've got something of a rep. Some people know who you are to some degree. And so when you come down, that you've been able to build something of a buzz. You know what I mean? If you come in totally unknown, well, it's no different than anywhere else in the world, you're not going to get a lot of people there unless you're able to attach yourself to a tour that is going to draw some people, which is a real good way of getting in front of people, which is a traditional way of getting ahead. But I think the truth is, and we get asked this at different conferences around the world, and how do you get from A to B in this business? And when I say A is or from, let's say, the ground, to the sky, and it's not easy. But I think initially you've got to have that point where someone's looking after your career for you, your manager, and they believe in you, and your manager's almost like they might even be putting a little bit of money into you or finding some way to get that money to do some of these things. Because I've got to tell you that there are bands that come to me from around the world continuously and go, we want to play your festival. And for the sort of money, and I'm not going to go, well, here's a whole bunch of money, I never heard of you. I mean, I'm sorry. They deliver themselves for an amount of money where, in all likelihood, they're paying to play or going very close to breaking even and taking nothing home to their wives or husbands. That's just the way it is when you're trying to build. And I'm not saying that people don't get paid an amount of money, but you look at all the costs, you take it out, and you go, this better be part of a game plan that actually is not going to, we're all going to get back and go, why the hell did we do this? You've got to think it through. You've got to go, well, we're going to do this. What's the next step?